Fall is all about cozy comforts, and with Hero Bread, you can enjoy all your favorites and still hit your health goals. From breakfast bagels and meal prepped enchiladas to mouth-watering burgers and cheesy noodles. You won't believe Hero Bread's options have 0 to 5 grams net carbs and are high fiber from the taste and texture. And right now, Hero Bread is offering 10% off your order. Go to hero.co and use code FALL25 at checkout. That's FALL25 at HERO.co. All figures are per serving of Hero Bread. Contains 2 to 18 grams of fat per serving. See the product nutrition panels on hero.co for more information.
As a small business owner, have you ever felt overwhelmed by the pressure of choosing the right hire or leading a team? Or have you ever found yourself tolerating a bad hire because you fear trying and failing again as you repeat the hiring process? If so, you're not alone, and you are in the right place. Welcome to the Growing Your Team podcast. The Growing Your Team podcast teaches business owners like you to expand your unique business by teaching you to master the hiring and team management process. Hiring and managing a team does not have to be a challenge. You just have to learn to do it right. And the Growing Your Team podcast teaches you how to become a confident leader who hires right every single time. Now, let's jump into the show where each episode you will learn tips on how to identify what type of help you need on your team, how to source amazing candidates, how to conduct interviews that lead you to your ideal team member, how to onboard successfully, and how to lead every person in your business so you have a team of rock stars who you are happy to pay every single paycheck. So let's jump in and teach you how to hire like a pro. Hello, Jamie Van Kuyk here, and welcome back to the Growing Your Team podcast. Today, I have on guest Louise Brogan. Louise helps B2B companies leverage LinkedIn to raise their profile and generate leads and sales. As the host of the Raise Your Visibility online podcast and YouTube channel, with over 100,000 subscribers, she shares actionable tips for growing businesses online. A winner of the Digital Marketer of the Year Award, Louise has also been recognized in the top 100 small businesses and top 100 female entrepreneurs in the UK. She was honored to represent UK small business at Buckingham Palace, meeting King Charles. Beyond her passion for helping solopreneurs, coaches, and consultants through workshops and one-to-one training, she also works with larger organizations like BT, BBC, the Chartered Institute of Accountants England and Wales, and the Law Society. Whether you're a small business or a large company, Louise is dedicated to helping you build your brand and drive results online. In this conversation, Louise and I are talking all about LinkedIn. We are talking about LinkedIn from two different perspectives. One, how you can get your employees involved with your LinkedIn marketing strategy, and then also how you can use LinkedIn to showcase your business so that way you are attracting potential employees to your company before you're even ready to hire. LinkedIn is a powerful platform in the business world, and as business owners, we need to know how to use it appropriately when it comes to delegating tasks, so that way we're not being unethical, but also so we're taking the right steps for us and our business so we can spend our time and effort in the right areas. So let's jump into the conversation so we can learn how to properly delegate LinkedIn activities and then use LinkedIn to support our hiring efforts. Hi, Louise. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Growing Your Team podcast.
Hi, Jamie. Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Yes. All right. Before we get into everything, can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself and your business?
Yes. So my name's Louise Brogan. I live in Belfast in Northern Ireland, and I run a LinkedIn marketing content done for you agency, which is a bit of a mouthful. I also do LinkedIn training and workshops. I have been in business for myself for about 10 years. Before that, I was a IT software engineer and IT project manager. And I have 3 kids who are all now getting older. So the youngest is 14. And they're the reason I started my business, was to create a business that worked with me still picking them up from school and stuff when they were little. And I love my business. I have a team of 6 people who work for me in what I call micro positions. So they all do various smaller tasks, nobody full time. And they're located, some of them are here in Northern Ireland, but some of them are in England and some of them are in the US. And I have a YouTube channel and a podcast, both called Raise Your Visibility Online. I became a YouTuber during the pandemic, and I got my silver play button last year for over 100,000 subscribers, which is still crazy to me.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And this year I finally published my book, which I have been talking about writing probably since I was about 5 years old, although it wasn't about LinkedIn when I was 5. I always wanted to be a writer, and I published a book called Raise Your Visibility on LinkedIn. And I'm more delighted about that than any other achievement I think I've had in my business to date, probably.
Yes, congratulations on the launch of your book. That is so exciting.
Thank
Before
you.
we really get into today's topic, I just have a question about your background. So you said you were in IT doing project management, which
Mm.
IT world, project management world, it's very internal, a lot of it. So how did you go from that to really becoming this expert on visibility that is very external?
Yes, that's actually such a good question. So I remember my first IT job, my first graduate job that I had in IT. Somebody came, an external person came. I worked for a really large company called BT, which is British Telecoms. And somebody came along to our department, and our team, or our directorate of 30 staff, were taken, and we did a Myers-Briggs exercise, which I think most of your listeners will know what Myers-Briggs is. And when they charted everybody on the wall, on the whiteboard, as to where they sat on the Myers-Briggs profile, there's loads of little dots in one area, and then there's this other dot. The guy said, "Who's this person?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's me." And he looked at me, literally looked at me and went, "I'm not really sure why you're working here." I was like, "Pardon?" Because I guess everyone else is like really introverted and techie and geeky. But actually, Jamie, so am I. I'm really into data and geeking out and analytics, which actually has played me really, really well for focusing on LinkedIn. But when I left that job and went traveling with my now husband, and when we came back, I wanted to do a job that I felt gave back to the community, rather than just working for a large corporate. And I went and worked, so I became an IT project manager in the National Health Service. So I was using my IT skills to implement software programs for nurses and OT, occupational therapists and physical therapists and social workers. I know those are all slightly different terms in the US than they are over here. So I would talk to software companies about software. Then I would go to the head of nursing, and we would talk about what they needed out of software. And then I got to train the nurses on how to use, which I absolutely loved. And I suppose that started to lead me away a little bit. But whenever I had my kids, and I went part-time in my job, and when I wanted to apply for the next position up, I was told that I couldn't unless I came back full-time. So I thought, well, that's just not going to work for me. I've got these 3 small children at home. I don't want to arrive home at 6:30 at night, grabbing them from nursery school, feeding them, putting them to bed. So I started to think, well, I need to figure this out. And people didn't really want to hire for high level IT positions, part-time women. This is like 10 years ago. And so I thought, what will I do? And this is like such a side story. My sister was amazing at crafts, like card making and scrapbooking. And I said to her, I think we could sell. we could sell this stuff to people, and we could do classes on how to do card making and scrapbooking. So my background is that my dad was an entrepreneur and had his own business. So it's always been in my blood. So I started a craft shop, and I opened a bricks and mortar premises, and it was disaster is not the right word, but I didn't make any money at it.
Yeah.
You know, and I was pouring everything into it. I was still, there's a period of my life for 2 years where I was working 25 hours a week in my job, had 3 small children and a new dog. Oh my Lord. People listening, do not get a dog while your children are babies. It's just wait,
A lot of work.
just wait. And I had this shop, and the money that I earned in the shop was going to pay the lovely women that worked in my shop for me. And I didn't know how to run a business. And I would get money in and I'd just go and buy all the new products that look really lovely and gorgeous. And then people would come into my shop and tell me how much money they'd spent on craft supplies and QVC, and then buy a 99-cent double-sided sticky tape. So somebody came along, a business advisor came along to my shop we have lots of government support here for small businesses, and sat down with me to look through my books. And after about half an hour, she said, would you mind if I was really honest with you? And I said, no, that's what you're here for. I want to hear what you have to say. And she said, this business is not working for you. You're not making any money at it, and you're doing so much to try and make it work. She says, but actually, you seem to know what you're doing on social media. And most of the clients I speak to haven't got a clue. And I says, well, my background's IT. I mean, that's I love. I've been on the internet since 1989 or something. I had a Yahoo email address in 1989 when they were just first giving them out. And so I always loved being online and being on the internet. And she says, I think you could really help other companies, other small businesses with their social media. So I pivoted then to start helping small business owners like your local Pilates instructor, that, you know, my local takeaway restaurants, to run their Facebook pages, and that's really where it all started.
Yeah, that is great. That's a great story. And I think like one of the things I love about that is a lot of times we see people's successes. Like, as I was mentioning to you before we started recording, like, you know, we are in a business group together, and I've seen your name, I've seen people sing your praises with everything that you're doing on LinkedIn. And a lot of times we just see people's successes and we don't see everything that takes to get there. So I love that you brought up that you also had this business that was a lot of work and ended up, as you said, like, was kind of a disaster. It didn't bring you what you needed in terms of what you were looking for success with that, but it led you to where you are today. And so I love hearing stories with that, where people are like, yeah, I did this thing and it didn't work out. Because that's my background too. The first business I started, I hated it with a passion. But I was so afraid to tell people at first that I was like, yeah, that business is not working out. Because in my mind, it was like, I'm a failure because that business didn't work out, instead of focusing on where did it lead me to?
Yes. And Jamie, do you know what that makes me think of? You know, I was like, something's going to change. It's just around the corner. I'll just keep going and something's going to change. I'll figure this out. I'll bring in classes. I'll start serving coffee. We're going to do something and it's going to change. And the change was that woman coming in and being brutally honest with me and going, splash of cold water in your face, Louise, this is not working. But also, my passion wasn't in crafts.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't really, like, my sister was, but not me.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important if you're going to run your own business. I think maybe, I don't know if this is my viewpoint of the world or not, but I think especially as women, if you want to run your own business, you want to do something that you actually care about.
Right.
And it means something to you, as opposed to my 14-year-old will always say, where's the cheddar, mom?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And I think that's so important. And that was like the first business I started. It was a software development company. My husband, he was a software engineer. So, you know, we're like, this makes sense. He'll do the software side, I'll do the business side. And we went to a conference together. And this conference, it was great because it had very technical sessions, but also had very leadership focused sessions. But when we went out to dinner after that first night of the conference, I looked at him and said, I will never have the passion that these
Yes.
other people have about what they're doing and the products.
Yeah.
And that was like my wake up call and I said to him, I was like, I didn't leave a corporate job that I loved to be miserable with something and be unhappy just to call myself a business owner, because I always had
Yeah.
the goal of running my own business. I was just like, but what does that goal mean if I'm miserable?
Yeah.
So, it was like having to step back and say, okay, this is not for me anymore. Let's find something that does light me up, that allows me to achieve my goal and touch my passions and make me happy every day to go to work.
Yes. So you don't
Yes.
feel like I don't feel like I feel like I work because I work really hard. But like I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. So, okay. Well, we need to get on to talking something about teams and everything today. But before we do that, because obviously you are a LinkedIn visibility expert. So I want to talk a lot about LinkedIn, and we're going to get to talking about how teams and everything can support you with LinkedIn. But I
massively.
feel like people fall on one side of the spectrum when it comes to LinkedIn. Well, maybe there's three spots, because I can think them probably in the middle here. They're either very, very active, they've never really touched the platform. Maybe they have an account, but they don't really go on there. Or they're
Yeah.
probably like me, and it's like, I'm going to do really well on LinkedIn, and it lasts about 2 days, and then they like fizzle out. So let's just start, like, why should we focus on LinkedIn? And, or maybe even, how do you know that LinkedIn is the right place for you to focus your attention?
Yeah. So it's really interesting. Inc. magazine did an article about this recently and said that people are fleeing the chaos of other platforms to come to LinkedIn. I was like, oh, that's quite an extreme title. But I think that LinkedIn for me is where people are already going with business in mind.
Mhm.
So if you think about, and this is very true for me, Facebook is where I'm really connecting with nowadays. Honestly, it's like older members of my extended family and the kids' school and that kind of stuff. So it's like family and community. Instagram is really, and they this is what they were built for. You know, Facebook was built for society and community. Instagram was built for inspiration, and that's, I think you get a lot of that from there. But LinkedIn was built as a business networking platform, and
Mhm.
really originally it was for recruitment, and it still heavily is for recruitment. But as entrepreneurs, we can ride along on that wave, because it's what I love about LinkedIn is it really pays attention to the people who are on the platform. So what I mean by that was people started to flock to LinkedIn during the pandemic, especially in 2020. The growth was enormous because all of the people in B2B sales could no longer go to conferences and out to, knock on doors of potential clients and networking events, and they had to go somewhere. So they started to go, well, these people are all on LinkedIn. So they started to come to LinkedIn, and people like me who create content on LinkedIn, we provide the entertainment, for want of a better word, for those people. So most people in corporate don't really post anything on LinkedIn at all. Um, there are some people that do. There are some notable exceptions. So I'm doing a talk about LinkedIn, video and LinkedIn specifically, in San Diego in the start of April. And one of the slides is the CEO of Blackstone, and he will deliver financial analysis while jogging on video on LinkedIn,
Interesting.
which is interesting, right? It's like, I'm not sure I'm particularly in love with that format, but it is interesting and it gets a lot of views. So there's people who are creating content, and that brings people to the platform, and they stay on the platform because what happens is if you are creating LinkedIn content in the right way, and I've inverted commas there, in my belief, what the right way is by starting conversations and building relationships with the people that you're connected to on LinkedIn. And when you reset your mind to look at it in that way, this is a platform where I can go and connect with people in my business network, and I can have conversations with them, whether I've met them in person at a networking event and I'm continuing those conversations because we're both interested in the same kind of topics, or whether you find them on LinkedIn and connect with them there. If you look at it that way, so I'm there to build my network and have conversations with people that may lead to business, may not lead to business, but it becomes an enjoyable place to go, and you're more likely to check in on LinkedIn when you've built that kind of network up around you, in my opinion. And that stands for your team as well, and for recruitment, actually, very importantly. I think that companies of all sizes should show up on LinkedIn, and they should showcase their employees. And if you have a team of 5 and you have a company page, if you can encourage your team to show up and engage with that company page, you can get really brilliant reach and engagement with that. But it's all about people understanding why they should do that. You ask your team to show up on LinkedIn, they're not going to do it unless you can demonstrate why this is a good platform for them to connect and help build the business, and then the business grows and get more orders, more clients, and better for everybody. But a lot of people are scared of LinkedIn. They are like, "Ooh, it's a bit professional, and what if I say something and I don't look as professional as I feel?" And that's really that's a lot of that is where we help our clients with that. So yeah, we do a lot of video content with clients, and it is very much holding their hands to talk about what's the strategy behind this video, what we're going to say, how will you come across, and then let's get your team involved in amplifying that message. And you don't need to outsource that to someone like me and my company. You can invest in a bit of training for you and your team, and somebody in your team could take on that role, and I have found, Jamie, that the companies we work with, there's always people in the company who will, if you say, this is what we're thinking of doing some video content on LinkedIn, you've always got somebody who will say, okay, I'll have a go at it and see what happens. Yeah. And then it's bringing your team along with that, to encourage them and make them feel comfortable with it as well.
Right, right. Yeah, it's part of that thing of like, how can your team members feel like they're ambassadors of your organization, which I think, yes, like, as you talked about, like LinkedIn at first being that recruiting platform. And I think that's something that we forget about as business owners, is especially as small businesses. Sometimes we think that we don't have that large presence. Like, what do I put out there in terms of like creating a company culture or showing who you are like internally? And I think that's really important. If like, if people are out there, they're professionals, they're looking for opportunities, they're looking to connect. And if they're able to see who you are as an organization, it's creating that environment where people want to work for you before you ever have openings, which then makes your recruitment easier because you're not trying to hunt down candidates. Candidates are coming to you.
Yes, 100%. And I find that, so one of the clients that we work with, they have a team they do learning and development, and so they're outsourced learning and development. So somebody will hire them to come in and create a learning and development program for the client company. And we did a feature video of one of their program controllers, and it was how she had gone into this company as a junior admin, and they saw potential in her and they invested in her and gave her training. And she talks about this on the video. So she talks about the day-to-day, what does my role involve, and who do we work with as clients. But then she talks about how she was given the opportunity and how her team leader saw potential and trained her. And like, it shines out of the video. And I think, you don't need to have a recruitment campaign because it's right there. Anyone watching that, yes, like, that's the kind of company I want to work for. And I think that's where video actually comes into its own, because you can read that story, but if you hear the person saying it and you see their face when they're telling you that story, that's a whole different level, I think.
Oh, yes, I definitely agree. So one of the questions I have there, so as small business owners, so a lot of people listen to this podcast, they have teeny tiny teams, if they even have teams. So maybe 5 people, maybe they go up to 10 people on their teams.
Yeah.
And so when we're looking at building a presence on LinkedIn, are we talking about company pages? Are we talking about individual profiles, or are we talking about both?
We are definitely talking about both. The thing with company pages, it's just really, really hard to get anybody to engage with your company page. And statistically, the people who do engage with your company page are your own team members, right? So you need to have a
Right.
strategy in play to say, okay, we're going to post on the company page maybe 3 times a week. Well, everybody in the company knows that it goes out Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Take a note in your calendar, hop over to LinkedIn, write something under that post. That's the massively key point here. Don't just click the like button, write something and then share that content out to your network and say why you're sharing it. But the personal profile is far stronger, far stronger, because we connect with individuals and you get much more visibility on your personal profile. My book is literally called Raise Your Visibility on LinkedIn. It's
Right.
all about visibility. And we do cover teams and company pages as well in the book, but it is very focused on how you as the individual can build up a strong profile, start curating a network of people around you that you are interested in, who are interested in what you have to say. And when you post something, they care about it and they start having conversations, by which I mean comments where you go back and forth. And so you've got content, which is your content you're sharing out with people. You've got connections, continually building connections is all in your personal profile. And then you've got community. And alongside creating content to post yourself, and if you are, someone listening is going, but Louise, there's 3 of us in our office and we're servicing clients all the time, or we're doing sales. How are we supposed to do all this stuff on LinkedIn as well? So I have a whole strategy called How to Cope with Video on LinkedIn, Jamie, which stands for create once, publish everywhere. And it's the product that we work with all of our clients on, but I also teach people how to do this themselves. And I'm pretty sure I have a video on how to do this on YouTube that people can go and watch for free. And we do 1 hour of video recording every month with a client, and we know who they're trying to connect with, what their message is, and what they want to accomplish on LinkedIn. For some people, it's we want to be seen in our local business network. For some people, it's we want to generate 5 leads. I spoke to a potential client this week, and he said, if I get 5 clients in 6 months, that's amazing. That's all we need. So everyone's got different reasons why they want to be on LinkedIn. But we do an hour of video, and I do the video with the clients, and I will ask them, it's like an interview almost. I will ask them a question. So I get off screen and they answer the question. So the video that results out of that is this person talking into the camera lens. So on LinkedIn, it looks like they're talking to you as the individual. They're talking to me, but it comes out like they're talking to you. And out of that 1 hour, we get 4 videos a month. And then we take the transcripts of those and we repurpose them into posts. And you can take clips out of that and highlight quotes that people say to create image posts. And when you do that, you've got enough content for your whole month on LinkedIn. And then also the last thing is the LinkedIn newsletter, which looks like a blog or an article. But yeah, you can get all of that from 1 hour of focused time, and you can get somebody in your company. It's definitely easier if you do it with somebody. So it could be somebody in your company, and you, the CEO, and somebody in your company does this together, because otherwise what happens is you turn on the camera and you think, where am I losing track here? What am I answering here? I can't remember. Or you do you might do 5 videos in a row and then you forget about it for 3 months.
Yes.
I think that there's so much business opportunity on LinkedIn that it is worth spending a little bit of time coming up with a strategy on how you're going to create content.
Yeah. Yes. I know for myself, hopefully by the time this publishes, I'm starting to be more active on LinkedIn. But right now, as we're going to record, I probably have posted 2 things since the start of the year. It's on my goal, but I am one of the people that I will say I am very guilty that when I get busy with client work, marketing is the first thing that falls off my plate. And So I have set myself baby goals this year because I've noticed in the past I've set like too big a goals to get into marketing where it's just like I'm going to do everything everywhere type
Yes.
thing.
Yeah.
And I was just like, that is not working. So I set myself baby goals. And so the first thing was to become more consistent of posting reels on Instagram. And
Hmm.
so I did exactly what you said. I sat down just one day and I mapped everything out of what I wanted to talk about, what my goals were each week in terms of content and themes and stuff like that. And then I think I had a 2 hour time period where I recorded because, Reels on Instagram, they've recently upped it where now I think you can do 3 minutes, but before they were a minute and a half. So it's
Yeah.
very short content pieces. And I think in 2 hours, I recorded a whole quarter's worth of almost daily reels that could go out. And it was just
Amazing.
like, go, 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 go. So now I'm in the process of schedule those out, make sure those go out every day. Don't record these and let these sit here because I've done that in the past. So
Yes.
that's my goal. And as you mentioned, you can take the transcripts of that and you can build other content around them. And so that's like my second goal is how can I take that and
Yes.
do other content around it. And I was like, don't do it all at once, Jamie, because if you try to do it all at once, you're gonna overwhelm yourself. It's like, how do we get in a
Mhm.
good habit about doing one thing at a time? And so the first thing was posting the reels, then it's taking the transcripts, and then the next thing on my list is how do I repurpose this to LinkedIn? And one of the things I
Yeah.
don't know is like, is a reel I make for Instagram, can I repost that to LinkedIn or should it be a different piece of like content in terms of like different video styles or things like that? Does that need to be different versus like the topics? But that's like my one thing is like focus on one thing at a time to get there so you don't overwhelm yourself.
Yes. Completely agreeing with you. The thought of sitting doing reels for a whole day. You see, this is why everyone's so different. Like I'm like, I wouldn't even know where to start.
Yes. Yeah. So one of the things like I really want to kind of address today and talk about is okay, for some people, creating this content is very easy. You can knock it out. It's second nature. And for other people like me, it's that thing that always gets pushed to the bottom of our to-do list. But even for the
Yes.
people where it's second nature and you're in this really good habit, if it's doing what it's supposed to be doing, it's helping to probably grow your business, grow your connections, grow your revenue, where then you're getting more and more on your plate. And the things that were very easy for you to do when you had a teeny tiny business aren't necessarily easy for you to do when you have a big business because the fact that you have more things that are taking your time.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how and where we can appropriately pull in team members to help us with that. Because you've talked about having team members help engage with your content and share your
Mhm.
content, but still someone has to be creating that content. And I feel like, especially with the personal profiles, there's that whole thing of that mindset of it has to be me every step of the way. So, how can
Mm.
we bring people in to support us with getting that content out so it doesn't feel so overwhelming for both perspectives, as the person who it feels overwhelming so they don't even start, and for the person who has grown it to the point where now it's overwhelming because they have so much going on in their business?
Yeah, no, I totally so it's tricky with the personal profile stuff because it really should be coming from you. And my suggestion is if you're someone in your team and they have like, I don't know, maybe like 2 hours a week that they are going to be creating the content for you or whatever, even if it's 1 hour, I think that's where you've got to be very close to that person or you schedule the time out. And the 1 hour video piece that we do, there's no reason why your team member can't do that with you. The issue that I have with this, Jamie, is that if it's somebody within your own team, it's going to be too easy for you to say, "Oh, I know we've that scheduled, but I haven't got time. I need to go and see this client." And
Mhm.
it is what takes priority gets done as well. So you've got
Right.
to decide if is this on our goal for 2025 that we are going to get visible on LinkedIn or not? And the lovely thing about LinkedIn that I really like is that your content can literally be a conversation starting post. You don't need to be creating reels and videos and images. LinkedIn is still a platform where you can just literally write down a couple of sentences and ask a question, and that can be really fantastic content. So I do think that all of us have that in us, but we have just got to think, is this worth me spending my time on? Is this something I can outsource to somebody else? Like my husband, something I was doing this week, and my husband said, Louise, is that really the best use of your time? Like if you divide, it was something to do with my book. And I said, yeah, I said, oh, someone bought a book off me for £10, right? So the book is on Amazon, but I have my copies that if I meet somebody, say, oh, I like a copy of your book. And I'll say, oh, it's £10. And we were out for lunch and he says, woohoo. So what is £10 divided by like the 500 hours it took you to create that book? And I think you do have to be realistic. Like if your audience is on Instagram and the reels you're doing on Instagram is creating a nice steady flow of leads into your business, do not push yourself to be on other platforms as well. It's just too much.
Yeah.
But if you decide that you think LinkedIn is where your business could be or where your leads could be, I always think try something for but you've got to try it for like 30, 60 days, 90 days. And give it a really good go as well. A lot of people will just, like, as you say, just stick whatever's on Instagram on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
They're not having conversations with people and they're not engaging with people. And they're not looking at anybody else's posts. And then they go, LinkedIn doesn't work for me. And one of the things I do with some clients, so I do a one-to-one session with people. It's called the Visibility VIP package, which people can go and check on my website, which is louisebrogan.com. And they'll say, oh, I've been doing LinkedIn. Like, I already know how to use LinkedIn. I don't need you to help me with my profile. And I'll look at their profile and I'll be like, diplomatic head on Louise here. Because you can see that their profile is not filled out very well. You met them on Zoom and they don't look anything like their picture. And they're just reposting content from other people. And you're like, there's a lot I could help you here with.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's sometimes those things where it's like, we think we are doing well, but we're not the experts. Like I have people that it's like, oh, I have this amazing job post. And then I go and look at it and I'm just like, well, I can see why we're talking and why you're not getting the candidates that you want. Like you think it's great. I remember there was a gentleman that he was on my podcast and I was on his podcast. So I can't remember which conversation it was, but he asked me something. He was like, well, here's how we do stuff in our recruitment process. And he goes, what do you think? And I nicely told him and he goes, that was the nicest way of someone telling me that I was doing things wrong. He's like, you never actually said I was doing things wrong, but the whole point of what you said was I probably wasn't getting the results that I needed. And I was because I was doing things wrong. And it's just like, yeah, as you say, like put on that diplomatic hat of like, well, I'm not going to call you out, but we're talking because technically, there's something going on that's not right.
Yes.
So
it's so funny. I think that's a skill that you just get better and better at.
Yes. Okay. So, well, let's continue talking about like teams and how to like really leverage them there. And I like some of the stuff you said is like with LinkedIn, part of the whole thing is that networking and those connections. And I think if you think about it like that, like you said, like it really took off during COVID where people weren't going in person for networking. So they started using this platform. And you would never send someone to a networking event with your name tag pretending to be you. So if we look at that from that regard, like we don't necessarily want someone pretending to be us on a platform where it's all about connecting and creating those conversations and those connections with people and that really networking.
Yeah.
But I think at the same time, there's ways where we can have people help us. So if you think about in-person networking, maybe you have an assistant that's helping you find the networking events, blocking the time on your calendar. Maybe they're helping you with like, depending on what you gather from that networking event, sort things out for your follow-up and helping to make sure that you are where you need to be and talking to the people that you need to be talking to and completing those administrative back-end tasks that you don't necessarily need to do. So in that perspective, I kind of look at like, well, maybe LinkedIn can help with that. You have the team member that is ensuring you schedule that time and you hold yourself accountable for that time to record those videos. They are the ones pulling those transcripts and helping to create those additional conversations and talking points. So they're saying, hey, here, because sometimes I noticed this myself is I know my content so well
Yeah.
that I needed, in order to break it down into like the smaller snippets, I needed someone else to go and say, this is a really important point. I didn't
Yes.
know this. You know, you
Oh,
need to
yes.
emphasize this. So having that team member that's able to go and break that content down and pull out those kind of like sound bites in a way, create a
Yeah.
post about this. They might not be writing your post, but maybe you write it and they're helping to schedule it out and things like that. You know, there's different things that they can do on the back ends. I know you said a lot of times on LinkedIn, you don't necessarily need the videos, you don't necessarily need the graphics. It's more about creating those conversations. But I also think like if there's a point where you like those graphics or things like that, you don't necessarily need to be creating those graphics. Maybe
No,
there's something that you
absolutely.
talk about that would
Yeah.
an infographic would go amazing with, and they can go and create that. So some of those things where there's things, there's the personal things that you have to be doing because it
Yes.
needs to be personal and we don't want to have someone else pretend to be us. But there's still
Yes.
a lot of administrative things. Maybe it's even them going back through your old content to see what resonated with the right people, what turned into the clients, if that's what you're
Yes.
looking for, what got the most engagement, if engagement's what you're looking for, and those things where you don't have to be doing that.
No. So that, Jamie, that you're so good. But what I would say as well, don't let somebody else log in. Don't let your assistant or anybody else log into your personal profile on LinkedIn, because that is the number one thing I hear on YouTube is, please help me. I'm locked out of my account and I can't get back in, because they just shut you down.
Yeah.
So don't do that. But absolutely, your assistant or somebody in your team can create all the graphics and just send them to you. We actually use a third-party scheduling tool, and you can connect your profile to that tool, and then your assistant can go in and post as you. But the only bit you must do yourself is when you comment on other people's content and when you send private messages, that has to be you. You can't outsource that to somebody else. And I have worked with clients who have come to me after having used an automated tool to do that, and it's just not good, because as the recipient, it'd be like you and I being at a networking event, and I ask you a question and you just say, hold on a minute, and your robot comes over and answers me. I'd be like, please get me away from this right now.
Right.
So it has
Yeah.
to be that bit has to be you.
Yes, yes, I agree. And it's one of those things, like I always challenge people when they're trying to figure out like what to delegate is I ask the question is, does it just need to be done right, or does it need to be done by you? So I think this is a perfect example of there are things that need to be done by you, but then there's
Yes.
other things that just need to be done right, like creating those graphics or things like that. It could be that someone asks you a question that involves, well, let me go research that. Let me, you know, you're probably not going to do too much research if a client's not paying you for it, but there are some things that maybe you can hand that off to an assistant and say, hey, can you pull up this real quick so you have the link handy that you can then go type in that message and send off. You know, there
Yeah.
are some things that just need to be done right, but I think
Yeah.
LinkedIn is one of those platforms that a lot of it does need to be done by you, but
The other
there's still
the other
things you can
thing,
get help with.
Jamie, yeah, the other thing your team members can do is they can go on LinkedIn and build up their profile and connect people that you think would be a good lead or good connection for your company. And they could, so say I've got an assistant called Sonia, and Sonia spends an hour more every morning going on LinkedIn and looking for people who are asking questions about outsourcing LinkedIn, for an example. And she could be connecting with those people and building up relationships. And then she'd come to me and say, okay, Louise, last week I had a conversation with these 5 different people, and this person here I think would be a really good potential client for us. And then she'd go, so here's their profile. And then I would go and connect with them and do the next bit. So it's almost like they could be researching who's a good fit
Yes.
for us here, joining a LinkedIn group that's your local chamber of commerce or something, and doing the groundwork. So, and then saying, I think this person is somebody you should have a conversation with. So they're kind of doing the work for you as well.
Yes, yes, I love that because those are things that happen in natural networking, like in-person networking and
Yes.
everything
Yeah.
too. Also, when it comes to, hiring, if you have someone who is I don't know, let's just use an example. You run an accounting business and someone is out there, connecting with other accountants. I don't know if accountants are very active on LinkedIn, so maybe that's not a very good example,
Yes, they
but
are.
are they?
Yes.
Okay. So, but yes, and then like you're growing your accounting and bookkeeping practice, and they have a network of people who are not business owners, but individual contributors like they are. And then they can say, hey, my company is hiring and
Yeah.
Louise, here's someone that I know that is great that I have this connection with and they're interested in the job. And then you have that referral for someone to interview
Oh,
who was
yeah.
already familiar. So,
Yeah. I
so
mean,
yeah.
Jamie, mainly, I got a client recently from Instagram, which shocked me because I'm not really very good at Instagram. But normally, how I get business is somebody else on LinkedIn who I'm connected to will be having a conversation with someone, and they'll say, "Oh, we need to up our game on LinkedIn. We're gonna, do you know anybody who does LinkedIn for a company?" And they're like, "Yeah, that's what Louise Brogan does. You need to speak to her." And that is, I would say, that's how I get about 75-80% of my business. It's
Mhm.
referral and showing up on LinkedIn so that people know in my network know what I do. So when someone asks them
Yeah.
about it, that they
Yeah.
refer to me. And I think that shouldn't be forgotten about as well.
Yes. Yeah. And before we wrap up today, it kind of brings to the last thing that I just want to kind of stress and just remind people when it comes to hiring is a lot of our hires fall into, like, there might be the exception, but almost all our hires fall into one of three categories. You have the doers, you have the leaders, and then you have the educators. And
Mhm.
so the doers are the people that are actually executing the work. So they're getting the stuff done. You have your leaders, and there are sometimes your leaders of people or leaders of strategy. And then you have your educators, which are the people that are teaching you what to do. So you're doing it, but they're teaching you what to do. They're your guides and they're offering the training and things like that. So we have to look at as, people like you, Louise, like your team might not necessarily be going in and doing all the work, but you're sometimes educating or you're sometimes leading the strategy or things like that, or you are getting on there and helping with the videos. So you have to think even when it comes to hiring and getting support with our LinkedIn and our other social media and our marketing, it doesn't necessarily mean an employee. It can sometimes mean those contractors and those other businesses
Yeah.
that are helping us. And sometimes the biggest thing is holding us accountable for getting stuff done. I feel like
Yes.
sometimes if it's an internal team member where you have them where they have multiple responsibilities, you might ignore that internal team member if you're like, okay, on Tuesday we're going to sit down and record videos. But sometimes if we're paying that external company and they say, we have on our schedule on Tuesday, we're sitting down and recording videos, you're like, yes,
Yes.
I'm going to be there because that's the whole reason you're paying them. And if you don't show
Yes.
up for that, you're paying them for nothing that month.
It's so true. And yeah, I mean, that's what we do. We literally, people say to me, Louise, the only reason I'm on LinkedIn is because I show up for these video calls with you.
Yep. Yep.
Because then
Yes.
otherwise, how would they get it done?
Yes. All right. Well, we have to start wrapping up. So tell everyone how they can get in touch with you.
So you can connect with me on LinkedIn. It's Louise Brogan. Or have a look at our website. It's louisebrogan.com. And if you want to, I've got 300 videos on YouTube on how to use LinkedIn.
Awesome.
And it's called Raise Your Visibility Online. And yeah, but just come connect with me on LinkedIn. That'll be probably the easiest way.
Awesome. All right. Final question that I love to ask all my guests. We've all had leaders or managers that have stood out to us. Think of the leader or manager that stood out to you and share one thing about them.
Oh, this is an easy question for me. So my last manager who I worked for, he was called Wilbert, and he was just brilliant because there was about 10 or 12 of us in our team, and mainly women, actually, mainly women. And he was just the manager I'd had before that was very tight on, times and dates you had to be in the office, and if you were sick you had to phone in yourself. Your husband or partner couldn't phone in for you. Even like one
Mhm.
day I was vomiting and I had to be the one that phoned in. I don't know where they thought I was otherwise. But this guy Wilbert that I worked with, he was just um he just got it. Whether it's because he had kids of his own, he was like, if you got your work done, that's all he cared about. And we were busy. We were really, really busy. And as long as you showed up and got your work done, if you needed to leave 30 minutes earlier because you had a parent-teacher meeting at school, that was absolutely fine with him. And he always had an open door policy. Like he literally, we all worked in this big open plan office. It was really funny. It was a Victorian hospital building. So sometimes we were worried that the floor was going to fall through because it's like this, 150-year-old building. And if you've ever watched any English TV or, from those days, like one of those big old massive red brick buildings.
Yes.
And he always had his door open. And I would go into his office nearly every day I was in. I'd pop into his office, just say hello, grab a coffee. And he would always stop what he was doing just to make sure everything was okay and your project was on track. And he was just brilliant. And I will always think fondly of him. He was the best boss I ever had.
Good. Yes. Yeah. And I think that's like one of the important things is when we treat our employees like humans and like responsible humans, we get more out of them, where we say, I know you're going to get your work done and I'm looking at work output versus hours. And if you need to leave 30 minutes early, who cares? Like, unless your person is managing the front desk and needs to open and close, then you can't close 30 minutes early. Like if your totally office employees have an appointment, let them have that appointment. Like don't clock watch for positions that don't need to be clock watched.
Yes, absolutely. He was a great man. And I left that job, oh gosh, 12 years ago, I think now. And I still, every now and again, we actually, because during the pandemic, because it was in the health service and they did a call out for people who they might need people to come back in. And I emailed him and I said, I worked in IT. I'm not going to be able to don a mask and help people with any sickness. And I emailed him and I said, do you need help? And he was so lovely. He says, I don't think we do right now, but I'll let you know. And it's lovely to hear from you. So, just the loveliest man. So he's great boss.
Good. All right. Well, that brings us to the end. So thank you so much for joining us today on the Growing Your Team podcast.
Thanks so much, Jamie. And I forgot to say that I do have monthly workshops that I do. If anyone wants to go and check those out on how to use LinkedIn, you can go to louisebrogan.com/resources and see what the next one coming up is.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And that wraps up this episode of the Growing Your Team podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to follow or subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss new episodes. And if your favorite podcast app has the ability, leave a review and let us know what you love about the show. As you wait for the next episode, be sure to follow Growing Your Team on Instagram at Growing Your Team, or head on over to growingyourteam.com to access more resources and learn how growing your team can support you as you master the art of hiring.